Good evening and welcome to the March 11th meeting of the Ames Community School District Board of Directors. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Rosser, seconded by Colton. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Director Bierbaum, will you please read the purpose statement?
The Ames Community School District commits to equity and access that empowers every individual to reach their full personal and educational potential.
Thank you very much. And the first item on our agenda tonight, we have the pleasure of having Annie Arbuckle here with the Ames Education Foundation, and I believe we have a presentation.
Sure. Good evening. Can you hear me okay? Yes. So my name is Annie Arbuckle, and I am the Executive and Development Director for Ames Education Foundation. And I have a check to present to Superintendent Reisner this evening. And this check is to the Ames Community School District for the lunch account balance. And this check is for $4,000. It's coming from Ames Education Foundation from our Lunch Buddy program, which is for your lunch account balance to help students throughout your district. So thank you, and I'd like to present that to Mrs. Reisner right now.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Annie. We all appreciate the many ways that the Ames Education Foundation supports our students, our staff, and our teachers. So thank you. I'll go ahead and read the statement on regarding our public comments for discussion items in the public forum. Residents of the district, students attending the district, parents or guardians of students attending the district, and district staff members may address the board about any topic relevant to the district, whether on the current agenda or not. Those who wish to speak must sign up at the beginning of the meeting. Speaker participation is limited to 3 minutes once per item. The views and opinions of citizens addressing the board do not necessarily reflect those of the board, district administration, or staff. Speakers are to remember that Iowa law prohibits the board from discussing specific employees, students, or their performance. Student speakers will state their name and school. Others will state their name and address. And our first discussion item this evening is policies for discussion.
So the policies we have here continue what we were going through as new policies under review. One of note here that a number of us were really excited about when we first heard is the student school board representative. So I wanted to give the superintendent some time to just fill people in a little bit on the details of that.
Sure. The student school board rep is hopefully a position that will allow us to have student voice at all of our meetings and work sessions. As you can see, the board policy is there, and maybe of interest would be the administrative or the regulation part beyond that, where it kind of lays out the purpose. And so I just wanted to highlight those three things. The purpose is to serve as a liaison between the governing body of the district and the high school students. Also to provide insight and support to the board, understanding of student issues and perspectives, and to represent all students in accordance with the following qualifications, selection procedures, and responsibilities. So the term of office is 1 year. They would begin in August and conclude in June, the end of June. So I guess a little less, 11 months. And then you can look through the application process and the responsibilities. And then of course, we would work with them on the training that goes behind it. And they would have an advisor at the high school to work through developing reports and things that might come to the board.
You know, it's interesting. I really appreciate this item being brought forward, but I was kind of torn on what that dynamic would look like. And so I don't really have an opinion one way or the other. I think the more voices you have at the table is positive. But I was just trying to think of the commitment that this person would be providing would be significant. I realize it's just for a year or less. But, I mean, do you have any experience of what that dynamic looks like? What are some of the benefits? I mean, you talked about the conduit between students and the organization, but what additional, like, are there downfalls to this?
Yeah.
You know, the city of Ames has the ex officio for the student body. I was just kind of curious. I don't know specifically how well that relationship works. Does it not work?
Yep.
So just,
And I think I do have experience with it in previous districts, and so actually 2 of my districts that I've been in, it was a great role when it was done correctly. So when it's done with the full integrity and transparency of the position, I think it's a great role for the student and for the board. But we have to kind of uphold what the mission and what the point of the position is. One of the concerns I would say that has happened is students spread so thin that they don't really have time to make the commitment. So I think us being very upfront on what it looks like is really important. It is not a position that if a student has practices or events in the evening, it's not a position that works for them, because then they're missing our meeting to be at other events, and the point of the position is kind of lost. So that's been my experience. It really has to be a focus. I've had students who have done it that have been really successful, who were interested in government and different things in that manner, and this has been a great resume building and experience for them down the road.
I'm with Director Dierdorf. I was thinking about, I'm not decided either way. I just wonder about the time, the time commitment. I mean, we put a lot of time in this, and in fact, when people approach me about thinking about running, that is the biggest piece, that it's a puzzle for me, how to answer to the time question. So it would be, what would they, like, would they participate in the meetings and the work sessions, or how about the closed sessions?
No, they're not allowed to go in the closed sessions.
Okay, I would imagine that. That's still a lot of time. So I wonder how they would be able to navigate that piece.
Yeah, and like I said, it does have to be a student who is not involved in certain activities and practices in the evening, but definitely a role that's common on boards. I know Iowa has a whole strand at their IASB training for our student reps. At the last one, when we all went, they had some of the student reps there. Lewis, I think maybe you and I talked with them, but it is a model that's common. It's a great opportunity, like I said, for kids who are interested in that pathway. And like I said, it gives them a lot of good experience that they can use moving forward on college applications and internships and different training programs.
I'm supportive of this, but I also have to admit that having several high school students going through the process, the time commitment is significant. Could it be possible that we would do this on a semesterly basis? Not only would that, minimize that full commitment for an entire year, but also would give more students the opportunity to actually participate in that experience. So I'd just throw that out, instead of doing a whole year, just have them serve for a semester at a time.
Yeah, and that's not a bad idea. The one thing I would say that's difficult is it usually takes students a good 3 to 4 months to get used to the process, to get really engaged on a comfort level with the board. So I'd worry that we wouldn't have that consistency. Many of the policies you'll see, it's a 2-year term that the students serve. And so I've reduced it in my previous districts to a 1-year term. But I find that first, 3 to 4 months is rocky. They're still learning kind of the ropes, and gaining confidence and comfort with the position. So that would be my hesitation for a semester.
I just want to say thank you to Superintendent Reisner for bringing this idea to the district and for working with Director Beerbaum and I through the policy process. I'm very excited for this idea. I'm very supportive. I think we do a lot of talking about listening to our students and transparency, and this is really an opportunity to show that we mean it. One of the best parts about this opportunity for me to serve on the board is the contact that I've had with our students. We have some amazing students who do things that are just what I would think of as well beyond their years and their expertise, and yet they're doing it. I had the opportunity to meet with some of the DECA students, for example, proposing a policy on equity, and I think when I would really like to provide the opportunity for the students to live up to what I know they can do versus just us assuming what they can't do. And I think that the board, one of the things that I also like about this board is we're willing to be flexible. And if we do find after we try it that it's not working the way we want, certainly there's a willingness to revisit. But I'm just really excited about this opportunity, and I can't wait to see how it plays out.
I'm also very excited for the same reasons. I think it brings us back to why we're here. We're here about our students. And so it gives us that opportunity to have more communication with them. So I'm really excited about it.
As you know, I've been supportive of this one. One thing that came out to me that I wanted to ask, maybe if you had an example, just so we could get a better understanding as a board, it has a point of provide reports to boards as requested. What type of communication have you had, as an example, that students are able to bring to the board or maybe put back to the student body and find the student voice and bring it back?
Yeah, and I think that's really the importance of having that in the policy. You'll notice there's an advisor at the high school level for that student. And so before they come to each board meeting, however we decide or they decide in conjunction with us to set up that report, but every board meeting they would give a report, just kind of an update on if there was testing going on in the district, if there were issues that the students were working on, things like that, and they would give a report. Oftentimes, the report would be broken down into areas like clubs and celebrations, clubs, athletics and celebrations, current issues in the buildings, things like that the kids would have it lined out in a template form so it was consistent each time. And then they would have a process for going around and talking with club advisors or the leadership teacher or this student council, and they would do that for middle school as well. So then bringing that forward and touching bases with the elementary principals to see if there were leadership groups within the elementaries to bring all that information back.
I think that's a key thing to think about too, is as we think about what they'd be doing, there is definitely a time commitment there that does require significant effort, and we need to make sure that's clear with the students ahead of time. I think it's a great idea, and it could give us great feedback, so I'm fully supportive.
Sounds like there were some consistent concerns, but also some consistent excitement in terms of the opportunity to have an additional voice up here and to hear from our students firsthand. So thank you for the discussion. Are there any questions or comments about the remaining policies on here, mostly about building sites?
I did have one question about 801.4 about the site acquisition. So I think I like the policy. The one caveat I'd maybe recommend is the board, it can only go into closed session on certain specific things. And I thought that third sentence about the board may meet in closed session to discuss potential purchase of the sites. To me, that's kind of vague. So depending upon at what time frame during the site discovery discussion, I don't think we can just go into closed session. I think it needs to be more specific towards the end of that discovery session. So I was going to just recommend saying, as allowed by Iowa code, the board may meet in closed session or something to that effect.
I like the as allowed by Iowa code, and Kim is here and can make that addition for us to bring back.
Luke, I was going to bring that up. Thanks for bringing it up. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments on these policies? Again, many thanks to the policy committee. I know that you are moving through things, and we appreciate it, and we appreciate the information that we're receiving from IASB as they have vetted so many things for us. It provides us great amounts of assistance. Is there any comments from the public on the policies this evening? Come on.
So I love the idea of having a student voice. My concern is that who is going to be selected for that student voice. A lot of times when we see positions like this, it is the head of, they've been the head of everything, and they're really not the voice of the students. So with the time commitment that is there, you've already knocked out a significant number of our students because they can't play sports, they can't be involved in any activities, but they're also supposed to have a voice in it. So I would ask the board to really consider the selection of them and who you're excluding in this process. Are you really getting the voice of the students, or are you only getting the people that have a lot of time on their hands to be able to commit to this, that might not have the voice or have the connections throughout the school to truly give you the voice that you want to have? So just thinking through the application process and what criteria you're going to put up can exclude a lot of students that would be great in such a position, but might not be that top. So.
Great, thank you. Any other comments?
Can I make a comment? Not in response, because I know we can't respond.
Okay.
But I just want to say for the public who are looking, if you in the agenda packet that is online, the requirements are actually in the regulation. So if people have questions or do want to come back for more information, the requirements are in the packet.
Yep, it's Exhibit D1 on the current agenda on the website, so we do encourage people to look it up because the information's there. Okay, she's got it open, good, good, but I appreciate that
For people who
comment.
aren't here.
For people who aren't here, thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is board committee updates.
We met for the technology committee, and I'm really excited about a couple of things. We discussed some of our own internal policies. And there's fees for if Chromebooks are broken. And we all concluded together that that fee was inequitable. And so we're looking at other ways to get rid of the fee and possibly have discussions around it. You know, was it on purpose? Is there a different issue that maybe needs to be addressed? Also, we're discussing whether or not to allow kids to take their computers home over break. There are some kids that don't have an opportunity at home for a computer or anything like that, and this would really help them out a lot. We also have our mobile hotspots rolled out at the middle school and the high school, and the MediaCom information on discounted MediaCom connections has been distributed. 600 to 700 cards have been handed out so far with a link on there on how to get to that for people who need some help with an internet connection. And then the really cool thing that we did was there was a demo that the technology teacher is having for the middle school. He's got a class, and they do 3D printing, and he showed us some of the designs that the kids did, and wow, I was really, really amazed. This was so awesome, stuff that our eighth graders are doing. So I just kind of wanted to give a shout out to that. We've got some really, really incredible students out there.
Any other things anyone wants to highlight? Seeing none, I'll take any comments from the public. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to the transportation contract. Chris.
Good evening. We had met in work session last fall to review the transportation study that looked at in-sourcing transportation or remaining outsourced. The report came back and recommended to stay outsourced. At that point, from that work session, the recommendation would be that we would approach Durham for either a one or multiple year contracts. There are a couple reasons. One, and this is in the first page of your packet, our rates continue to be much lower than area school districts. And there was a thought if we went out to RFP that those rates would increase significantly. I do know Iowa City just got theirs back, and even though their changing carriers went up over 6%. So I think that was a real fear. And then just stability, not knowing what was happening with the high school, whether we're going to have to run shuttle buses, what was happening with parking. So I did approach Durham, and they gave me two options. One is a 1 year only, and the other is for a 3-year. Obviously, they would like the assurance of having a multi-year contract, so the 3-year contract is a much better offer. The 1 year, they had proposed a 5.5% increase across the board. They're also would be concerned about adding buses, which we need because there wouldn't be enough time to recoup the capital on that investment. So if you look at the spreadsheet that I provided in your packet, you will see the rates for a 2-year only, which does put us like closer to where Ankeny is, not quite up to where Johnston, not near where Johnston and Waukee are. Or the second line is the first year of a 3-year. The rates actually go down a little bit. That might look weird, but in our contract we have had a $1 per gallon allowance on fuel. And so basically we paid for the fuel over whatever was over $1 per gallon for diesel. If you recall, when we built the new maintenance building, we put fuel storage tanks down there, and we've been buying in bulk and getting a better price on it and saving on the sales tax. So all this year we have been doing this kind of little accounting maneuver where they bill us. I figure out how many gallons we used. I subtract $1 per gallon off their bill. So they have bridged that, and they have reduced the rate so that we don't have to do that anymore. So the rates actually go down from 194 to 189.17. Then in the out 2 years, they are proposing that it be limited to the CPI Midwest for all users, but capped at 2.75. I did present in your packet a history of the CPI and what's happening with that. It hasn't gone over 2% for quite a few years. So that 2.75% cap is really a protection for us more than it is for them, because they're going to get whatever the CPI is unless it goes over 2.75, and if it goes over, we're protected. So I would recommend that we bring for action at the next board meeting the 3-year contract. It also provides some stability as transportation moves over to the maintenance department for the next 3 years, so that we're not having to do an RFP while the high school is getting going. And they've increased drivers and monitor wages, and the management staff is stabilized. So we've had a really good year this year. So that would be my recommendation.
Any questions for Chris?
Oh, the only thing I'd note is neither Ankeny or Waukee have gotten their rates back for next year. They're both in the final year too. My understanding is they aren't going out. They've asked for prices from Durham, so they just haven't got them yet.
So Chris, I know in the past we've had some problems in past years with service, performance, things like that. Will this contract add any language or things you wanted that we didn't have back then to help if those type of issues occur again? Or would this be an opportunity to add something like that?
The language is in the contract to deal with it. We haven't necessarily operated it. The last time we had the significant issues, quite a few of them were because we had moved to the new maintenance building. There was no telephones, there was no internet, so that there was a kind of a perfect storm 2 years ago. Then they had, with the change in management, they had a whole bunch of bus drivers quit right before school, like 2 weeks before school. So it was all kind of a perfect storm there. So the remedies are in the contract. We are just proposing to do an amendment to the original contract for the new pricing. So, and I don't know if I mentioned it or not, but we are also increasing the fleet by 6 buses, which we need not only for our growing enrollment, but we have, because we've had the growing enrollment, we've had to take the athletic buses off the rotation to do routes, and so we've been doing a lot of charters. So we will be adding 6 buses. That will increase PEPL, but it won't increase the general fund, so.
Chris, I'm looking at the executive summary that you prepared for the board. At the very bottom, it says the district will expend approximately $2.5 million. Is that, yeah, that's right, 2.5 million, right? Is that with option 3 or option 2 or both?
That's what I'm estimating for FY19, and for FY19, they are proposing no increase. So for FY20, they're proposing no increase, so it should be about the same.
Regardless of which option we choose?
No, if you would have to add 5.5% to that if you went with option 1.
Okay. So, I mean, I guess for me, that's really what my thoughts were. So, I think someone mentioned this at the last board meeting. The public might not be aware, but board members sign up to come in every month and sign off on all of the expenditures that are made from district funds. And I almost fall out of my chair every time I get to the bus line. It's about, it's what, $250,000 a month? I'm speechless. Every time I get to that line, I have to ask Dee, what is this, right? It's shocking. And I think from my perspective, I agree. I was hoping you would recommend the 3-year, because I think that I feel like we've been talking about transportation for quite a while, and I know we're in transition, but I think the 1 year, right, doesn't give us, that 1 year is going to be gone. And I can't believe we had that work session, it was not that long ago, like a 1 year is going to be gone in the blink of an eye. To make that expenditure be even more money, I just think in terms of fiscally speaking, with all the things going on in the district, from my perspective, it makes sense to do the thing that keeps that huge line item as small as possible while we figure out what else we're still trying to do, because I don't get the sense that we're any closer to a decision than we were when we had that work session. So.
And you're very right in remembering that if you take that 2.5 million, divide it by 10 months of busing, that comes to about 250,000 a month.
Every time I get to that line, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I can't believe we spend this much a month on busing. It's outrageous. Well, I understand it's a lot, but, and what we, I think we just think about, the buses we see, but the bus service does other things, right? There's activities and field trips and all that kind of stuff. It adds up, and it's quite expensive.
Yes. We pay for the activities separately too from this contract, do we not? Or is that included in the contract?
The 2.5 million that's on the executive summary includes those activity and not only field trips, but the transportation for athletics, which is out of the general fund. I didn't mention that we did change how we're pricing the activity fund. We had a really low rate per hour, and then we paid per mile, and most of the school districts now are getting away from paying for the mile and just going for an hourly rate. So we did adjust that, and it's pretty much in line with what the other school districts are doing. So we have some long trips, so that mileage thing didn't always, when we're having to go to Sioux City, or didn't really always benefit us very well. So I did make that change, but yes, that does include the activity trips and the field trips.
I'm supportive of the 3-year contract. First and foremost, I think the service has vastly improved from where it was. And so if we were hearing problems like we were 2 years ago, I'd be very hesitant to do that. But as Monique pointed out, the money element is second on my list. And so I think coupled with better service and then also the offer that they're asking here for 3 years, I think makes the most sense.
I have to admit, I was pretty hesitant to continue with all the problems that we've had with Durham. But if you're putting the remedies in the contract, I feel a little bit better about that. Just because we got a lot of heat from people from some really bumpy beginnings of the year.
Any other comments or questions for Chris? Thank you for your work on it, Chris, and thank you to you and Dee for the work that the connection point that you're providing with Durham. I know that it's a continual process, and I do appreciate the work on the part of Durham, because they have made an improvement in their service, and so I appreciate all of you holding them accountable and working through this. So I am supportive also for multiple reasons, one being that the financial piece, but because that we have seen some improvement in their service. So, are there any comments from the public? Seeing none, we will go ahead and move to the public forum. And Anita Rollins, come on up.
Hi, my name is Anita Rollins, 3714 Woodland Street, and I'd like to read a letter that will then be made available to you electronically. Dear Superintendent Reisner and the Board of Directors, the Ames Youth and Schools Action Team, ASAT, is a nonpartisan and apolitical group of concerned citizens with allies across the community whose intention is to shine light on racial and ethnic disparities within the Ames Community School District. These inequities exist not only in academic achievement, but also in such areas as discipline, enrollment in advanced placement courses, and programming. Since 2017, our members have been actively engaged with the district and board to support progress in these areas. As its guiding purpose, the district has made a commitment to equity and access that empowers every student to reach their full personal and educational potential. Per the recommendations you have already received, we ask that you make progress on the establishment of an equity office, or EO. Many districts in Iowa already have an EO, such as Cedar Rapids, Davenport, Waterloo, and Iowa City. ASAT urges the district to staff its EO with highly qualified, culturally competent individuals tasked with ensuring equitable educational outcomes for all youth by providing policy and pedagogical guidance and by making improvements to school climate that ensure the success of all students. An open national search preceded by a public forum with a vision presentation would be best practice for identifying the director. Typically, EOs work in collaboration with all district stakeholders, including the school board, superintendent, program directors, building leadership, teachers, students, and parents. These EOs provide leadership, support, and service based on evidence, resulting in access to rigorous educational opportunities that address barriers to student success regardless of race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, income, or language. Given the new leadership at the district and building levels, that the district is in the process of adopting new curriculum and is rethinking transportation services, and that it is rebranding schools and restructuring summer programming, identifying a team of professionals dedicated to ensuring the infusion of critical consciousness and equitable practices in these structural changes is urgent. An EO would also aid with the efficient use of resources by helping the district get solutions to these complicated issues right the first time. We ask that as budgetary decisions are made, the board and the district keep their stated purpose and priorities in mind and demonstrate their commitment by establishing an equity office. Thank you.
Thanks, Anita. Angela Shaw.
Angela Shaw, 1707 Duff Avenue. Today, my comments are in regard to the boys' basketball game that occurred on February the 26th against North High School in Ames, and the barking and monkey sounds that were made towards the African children. I'm coming at you with two main points from this. Number one, I appreciate the district for their initial email that went out to the parents talking about the hurt that was shown by this event that occurred. But what I didn't see is a specific apology to the players and the parents. As a parent of African American children, I'm used to giving that talk that African American parents have to give that white parents don't. I played basketball in high school in Chicago, and I remember getting that talk from my coach. Was that talk? You're going to be called the N-word, you're going to be barked at, you're going to have all these racial things occur to you. Also, along with that, we had a buddy system. We went to those specific schools that showed racist behaviors. For North High School, Ames is on that list now. It wasn't microaggressions. This was blatant racist acts toward these precious children. So when you ask them, have you had racism against them? Their answer is yes. I was barked at when I went to the free throw line by Ames High School. In addition, my sympathy goes out to those parents who had to go home and listen to those children as they said, it's 2019, why are we being barked at? Why are we having monkey sounds against us? So as a board, my question to you is, what has the district done to apologize to those players and their parents that are now targeted by us and our behavior? The second point I want to talk about was, in the letter, it was about a teachable moment. There was assembly that was thrown by Spence. There was no mention of that event in that. It was focused on, we have to do better than this. Ames high, Ames high. But there was no focus on the specific event and consequences for those that do racist behaviors. That should have been a very serious session with the kids. In addition to that, 2 weeks since, nothing has been as follow-up. This can have been incorporated into classrooms like sociology, English classes, world studies, all of them talking about the history of why barking is not appropriate. We're talking about a cultural change here. These kids felt like it was okay to bark at others and had parents around that were just as supportive, like, oh, that's what we do around here, that's normalized. In order to have cultural change, you have to be deliberate, and it has to be on the student level. There was no student code reviewed in homerooms, nothing. So how was this a teachable moment for those children? How are we going to ensure that when they go out to all these games and everything in the future, that this behavior will not occur again? So as a board, I ask you two questions. How are you going to remedy with those parents and those students who now are tarnished because they were barked at? How are you going to remedy and make sure that our students know that this is not appropriate behavior and it will not be stand for, and there will be consequences behind it?
Thank you, Angela. Moving on to the consent items, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Moved by Benkin, seconded by Perez.
Minutes from the meeting held February 21st and 25th, personnel report, open enrollment requests, and gifts to the district, including Ames Education Foundation, 2 anonymous donations, AHS Athletic Booster Club, Staples, and Curran Swift.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. First item on the action item series, 2019 GO Bond Pre-Levy Resolution.
I move the board approve the resolution authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $45 million general obligation school bonds, Series 2019, and levying a tax for the payment thereof.
I second.
And moved by Deardorff, seconded by Beerbaum. Discussion. Chris, you want to give everyone a description of what we're doing here?
Sure, and if it's
Thank you.
okay, I'll do all three and then
Thank
don't
you.
have to.
Yep.
So we have 3 action on GO bonds this evening. The first one will be the first major issuance of the $110 million that was approved last April. If you remember, we did just under $5 million last year, so we could pay for architects and construction manager. So we plan on issuing $45 million in June. In order to be able to do that and service the debt in fiscal year '20, we have to do this resolution now before we approve our budget so that we can tell the county auditor that we're going to be levying taxes next year to service that debt. The second 2 items are the continuation of what we call pre-levy, but legal counsel calls prepayment. These are the old bonds, and so we are pre-levying to, so that when our bonds from 2012 and 2013 come due, that we can have money in escrow to pay for those. So the first one is on the 2012 series, and the second one is on the 2013 A series.
Any questions or comments? All right, it's been moved by Deerdorf, seconded by Beerbaum, and this is a roll call vote.
Perez, aye.
Binkin, aye.
Deirdre, aye.
Beerbaum, aye.
Franzen, aye.
Colton, I.
Rosser, aye.
Passes 7-0. Item 12, 2012 GO bond prepayment resolution.
I move the board approve the resolution authorizing the redemption of the general obligation school bond, Series 2012, dated July 2nd, 2012, and levying a tax for fiscal year 2019-20 for the redemption of the general obligation school bond, Series 2012, dated July 2nd, 2012.
Second.
Moved by Rosser, seconded by Benkin. Discussion.
It's unfortunate we're getting up with low rates, but the market hasn't moved much, so hopefully our new debt won't be terribly more expensive.
Unfortunately, you can't use the old debt for the new debt.
Exactly.
All right, we'll go ahead and vote by roll call.
Perez, aye.
Binkin, aye.
Deirdre, aye.
Beerbaum, aye.
Franzen, aye.
Colton, I.
Rosser, aye.
Passes 7-0. Item 13, 2013 GO bond prepayment resolution.
I move the board approve the resolution authorizing the redemption of general obligation school bonds, Series 2013, dated June 4th, 2013, approving the Second Amendment to escrow, an amended and substituted paying agent, bond registrar, and transfer agent agreement, and levying a tax for fiscal year 2018 and 19 for the redemption of general obligation school bonds, Series 2013, dated June 4th, 2013.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to correct that. That should say fiscal year 1920. I apologize
all over again.
for that error.
Do I have to read it all over again?
No, I will make the change.
It's been moved by
Second.
Perez. Thank you. Discussion. Seeing none, we'll vote on roll call.
Perez, aye.
Binkin, aye.
Deirdre, aye.
Beerbaum, aye.
Franzen, aye.
Colton, I.
Rosser, aye.
Passes 7-0. Item 14, retirement policy revision.
I move the board approve the extension of the 2018-19 retirement incentive for employees as presented.
Second.
Moved by Rouser, seconded by Colton. Chris, do you want to just give the public a little bit of an idea of what we're doing here?
Sure. Last fall, might have been September, I can't remember the timing, we had brought to the board a early retirement plan for those employees who might want to retire at the end of 2019 school year. Because of some of the changes that we're making and budget modifications that we're doing, we thought maybe it'd be nice to extend the deadline. The deadline for the second part of the program was March 1st, and we're extending that to March 18th so that if anybody's impacted by budget decisions, that they have a chance to still retire and get the majority of that benefit.
Chris, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So what if somebody isn't ready to make the decision by March 18th?
So by law, in order to levy the tax, or to levy taxes to pay for that benefit out of the management fund, those retirements have to happen in March and be approved by the board by April 1st.
So they have to happen just in March. So what if somebody came in and wanted to retire on March 19th, would you say no? I mean, that's what I'm asking.
I would say no because we're putting 18th in there.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
We would say no because the date would be the 18th. We put it in there to allow us time to get those on a board agenda for the next Monday.
I see, okay. And so then if somebody misses the deadline, when is their next time to retire?
It'd be a year from now.
Next March?
Right, so tomorrow morning, we will send by email to the employees who are eligible to the plan to tell them that we have extended it. So
Okay.
first thing in the morning, the people who are eligible for the plan will get an email telling them that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Item 15, commissioning services for the new high school construction.
I move the board award commissioning services to System Works, Inc. in the amount of $197,760 for systems commissioning for the new high school construction project.
Second. Moved by Beerbaum, seconded by Colton. Jerry? You want to go ahead and give everyone an idea of what this is?
Sure. So commissioning services, we engage this expert. It's a professional service, and so we engage this expert during the design phase, and they look over the design documents and give us guidance and feedback. So they do some assessment of the systems that they're proposing and how it's going to coordinate and how we're going to be able to monitor and maintain this over time. They continue then throughout the construction process. They'll do site visits as well as check the equipment out as it gets installed. And then once the building is complete and the systems are up and running, then they test it to make sure that it is running the way it's supposed to, so that it's following the sequence of operation, it's operating correctly, it's heating and cooling when it should. They'll also come back at the change of season, because if we get it in the summertime, then we get it tested for cooling. So they'll come back 6 months later in the wintertime and they'll test it and assure that it's working for heating.
So Jerry, they're primarily focused on mechanical systems. Is that what it
Mechanical
is?
and electrical, yes.
Okay.
Mostly mechanical. I mean, we spend a lot of money and time and effort in developing these mechanical systems that are going to provide good ventilation, heating and cooling for the building. And so it's sophisticated enough, it's worth having somebody check that out.
Okay.
This always bothered me because it's really an energy efficiency audit, that making sure that we're getting what we're paying for. Like when we did the elementaries, I was frustrated because I think I put a system in my house, it should work as advertised. But this is just making sure the systems are operationally where they need to be, beyond what the manufacturer is suggesting.
Yes, yeah, there's some benefits, and I think indirectly, I think it does affect, once the commissioning process has been accepted, embraced by the construction community, I think there is a benefit to that. One instance that we had, this particular commissioning agent, they went through the building when it was under construction, and there were 6 major pumps that were designed to be included. They just had them set, and he noticed that they were in the wrong position. So he's able to advise, notify the mechanical contractor, who then double-checked, and they relocated their equipment before they had it all hooked up, connected, insulated, had the pumps wired, had the system full of water or the glycol mixture. So there's tens of thousands of dollars it saved them just to be able to pick up that little error. So that's the type of thing. They aren't somebody that's coming to look to try and find mistakes. It's an extra set of eyes to be able to work to reassure the team of success and to help us all be successful. So I think it's really important and it's beneficial, and it's a matter of being able to to purchase that time and that focus on being able to assure we get the value out of the systems that we put in.
So, to an extent, it is a quality control issue because, like you described, what's designed on paper and the products that we're purchasing to run that system, if they're not installed properly, like you've referred to as the series of pumps, that could affect what we ultimately get out of it. So, I think this is money well spent on our behalf to make sure we're getting ultimately what we thought and what we're paying for.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jerry, I just have a few questions. If you can help me understand, I'm sorry, it's hard for me to understand all this part. So, this person is going to be working for the district?
Yes.
Okay, and the 197,000, what time period is that for?
That starts at the design development, so right now, and that's going to continue through the completion of construction, plus I think there's a 6-month alternate season checkout and an 11-month walkthrough.
Okay, and so I think what I'm struggling with is I'm just trying to understand how this person works in connection with Story, who I thought we hired Story Construction to be the construction manager, and we're paying them a lot of money. And so how does this person relate to that service that we've already paid for?
These engineers, these experts have a greater detailed knowledge into how the systems operate and function. So how an air handling unit, it goes through a startup sequence. So you have to open up the damper, then the fan starts up, or the supply fan starts up, the other damper opens, the exhaust fan starts up. It's going to test mixed air temperature, supply air temperature. So it goes through that sequence of operations. So it's how the equipment is supposed to start out running. So they're going to test that to make sure that it does actually function the way it was supposed to. So there's that's more expertise than what Story provides as a construction manager. It's more so related to that mechanical equipment.
Do you anticipate there will be other needs for this outside expertise that will be coming through this process then that Story can't manage?
Yeah, the other one is for building enclosure commissioning, and that's a real challenging adventure, I think, because with the different types of materials, the different interfaces or connections, with the attention to moisture and the pressure and humidity on the inside and outside of the building, that's something that is really very beneficial, I think, to have that too, because they're going to do a mock-up panel, which is going to simulate the different types of materials and then the interfaces between those materials. They're going to test that for water and air infiltration. So that one's going to be something important, and if we can catch a problem before we build the whole building, it's really kind of worth it to prevent the corrections after it's all built.
Right, that's what I'm trying to understand, because I felt like I at least felt like I had a pretty clear understanding about Story and the way things would work. So this new entity, they would report to you?
They'll work as part of the team. So
okay.
There's no I in team. So there is a me, but there's not an I.
Well, I guess the way I felt with Story and the way we had it worked out was there was somebody who was accountable. There was this one entity, and they were kind of running the show, and now we have a new person who's also just kind of running part of the show. Or I'm trying to figure out where they fit in the hierarchy.
Again, when we started out this process, we started out to put together a top-notch team. And just reflecting here back the last couple weeks, I think we've really been successful in doing that. So this is just another team partner that's going to help us be successful and build the best building we can possibly build. So Story will help to coordinate all the different entities, the designers, the professional service providers, the contractors, subcontractors, to be able to get them to the job at the right time, to be able to do what they need to do at the right time.
But not these people?
Yes, they will. These are part of the team. So
okay. I'm just trying to understand it. So they're partners, but they're not actually working for Story. So all those other people you mentioned will be working for Story. They're contracting with Story.
No, all the contracts will be with the school district.
Okay.
So all the contracts, all the bid package work is going to be a contract between that contractor, subcontractor, and the school district. Story's going to manage and organize and coordinate all of these people in order to build this huge building. And this is one of the partners that's going to work. So rather than being on the construction side, they're going to be as an owner's agent. They're working for the school district, System Works in this case, to be able to oversee and look at how the mechanical systems are going to get installed and to assure us that they're working properly.
And you anticipate there will be another entity that will serve a similar function for the building enclosure commissioning?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
we're in the process of evaluating those proposals now.
Well, just one more question, just one more. Have you used these people before?
System Works? Yes, we use them on all 5 elementaries,
Okay.
district office, and the maintenance building.
So you're familiar with their work?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Just for reference, can you talk about the issues we had at Mitchell? So I assume this enclosure specialist would help address that issue we had. And then secondly, did we have this enclosure specialist for elementaries or not?
We did not use that at the elementaries. And so the specific,
The first one was,
Mitchell?
talk about the issues we had at Mitchell as far as humidity and the headache through that.
The humidity, I think, has more to do with the air handling equipment, so.
But would this special contractor that will be coming down the pipe, would that have addressed those issues?
The building enclosure,
Or this
not
one here?
necessarily as much as maybe the commissioning agent, the systems commissioning agent would, yeah,
Because we had the commissioning agent for Mitchell.
right.
Okay.
So, do you want to, I can explain that, if you want me to go into the weeds?
No, that's fine. It's really more of a specialized subcontractor for our construction management firm that's working for us,
Yeah.
making sure we get the right product.
We're getting some dehumidification units installed at Mitchell over spring break.
Okay.
So I've got a little project that we're putting in as part of the PEPL program that we're doing for that, just to address that humidity control. And then I'd like to be able to, so I'm doing kind of a short-term approach to be able to address the humidity. My expectation is that when we do the addition on Mitchell, we'll be able to incorporate a permanent solution that's really going to be robust and really manage that.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you for the clarification for us, Jerry. It's been moved by Beerbaum, seconded by Colton. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Items from the board.
I was just reflecting on our talk about the student school board representative. It's a good idea, don't get me wrong. Just after hearing what the student is supposed to do, I kind of got a little concerned about what we're asking the student to do. I mean, that's a lot of feedback from different, so I just don't know if I don't want us to have like this expectations that they cannot commit to, that they would have to track. We have 5 elementary schools, a middle school. I just don't want to set them up for failure. That's my biggest concern. And because none of us is doing this report, right? We're not every 2 weeks coming up with reports from the community. So that's my biggest reflection. I would love to have a voice. I mean, there's also, we're here for them. I mean, we're also listening to them, right? So there's that piece, and I would love to have somebody here. I just don't want us to create expectations that are impossible to meet. That's all.
I just want to take a moment to thank our staff during conference time. A lot of them put in quite a bit of hours, and it's always appreciative when you can sit down with your kids as teachers to really talk through what's going well, what are some opportunities to help them at home. So again, thanks to all our teachers that take the time away from their families to help our kids and parents.
I'd like to thank the staff and our teachers at the high school for looking at an innovative change this year to, conferences. Now we're having that orientation for signing up for classes next year, bringing the parents either with their students or not with their students. I think it's optional, to have that conversation with their teachers. I think it's innovative. I know a number of the staff are looking forward to it, and I know a lot of students that are looking forward to, let alone parents. So I'd like to thank them for thinking out of the box a little bit, and we're looking forward to see how that all turns out.
I'd like to just take a moment to acknowledge the Ames High Step Team. I was at an event this weekend and got to see them perform for the first time. I know they've performed publicly earlier, but this is the first time I got to see them. And I just want to say what a remarkable opportunity these students have. And I'm grateful that the district is supporting them. It's going to sound corny, but it literally brought a tear to my eye watching them perform. And, while they were really good at what they were doing, what I was so moved by was the community and love and support that they had for each other, and how special and meaningful that is to students who oftentimes feel alienated or ostracized in a predominantly white space. And just to see them cheering each other on, supporting each other, loving each other, was I'm getting chills just thinking about it. It was so beautiful and moving. So I just wanted to acknowledge them for their work. I want to acknowledge Jean for leading the team, and I want to acknowledge the district for creating the opportunities for those students. It's really lovely.
All right, how about items from the superintendent?
Just a couple things, so that you know, an update on negotiations. We will continue to meet in negotiations. The district gave their first opening round, and then we have dates set up with the union's negotiating team. So that continues to move forward. The other thing, we have kind of a busy week moving forward. We have Clay Cook coming, I believe, on Wednesday. And if you remember, Clay Cook is the guy that is working with us on our MTSS system. Wednesday will be him working closer with our behavior coaches, our principals, our counselors, and our behavior teachers to kind of set up a more intensive model for our significantly challenged behaviors that are going on. Also, we will have tomorrow critical consciousness work continuing. Katie and Daniel will be here, so that's a full day here in the district office. So we look forward to talking through the incident that occurred and just how with North, and how as educators our response and moving forward. And I really appreciate feedback from the community on that, and I've received quite a bit of feedback. So working through that, and we had been in conversation with Katie and Daniel throughout this whole event. So glad to have them here tomorrow to talk through it some more.
How about the board planning calendar? Anything maybe we should highlight March 25th?
Okay, I didn't go backwards, did I?
No,
There's
there's two items from the superintendent.
get
We're not
those
going to
ones.
make you report twice
Okay,
tonight.
let's scratch number
That's all right?
19.
Okay. So how about
I
we,
just got to look in that and think, did I talk about the right thing?
the board planning calendar, do you want to, the 25th, I want to make sure people are aware, March 25th.
March 25th, we
Yes.
will have a board meeting. And then I wanted to point out that April 8th, we will have a work session at 5 p.m. on budget. So working through some of the budget and getting a little deeper dive into it.
Great. So March 25th, we have called a board meeting in just for note, the board planning calendar that we initially received, we've updated it so that it includes the March 25th date and then the work session. So thank you for that information.
There's just two in a row.
Don't I have to have an action?
Okay.
Okay.
And I will go ahead and entertain a motion on closed session.
Okay. I move going to closed session as provided in section 21.51A of the Open Meetings Law to review or discuss records which are required or authorized by state or federal law to be kept confidential or to be kept confidential as a condition for the governmental body's position or continued receipt of federal funds.
Second.
Moved by Colton, seconded by Rosser. Is it roll call? And we will vote on roll call.
Perez, aye.
Binkin, aye.
Deirdre, aye.
Beerbaumer, aye.
Franzen, aye.
Colton, I.
Foster, aye.
Passes 7-0. We will go ahead and go into closed session. Thank you. We are back in open session, and I will entertain a motion.
I move we approve the consent expulsion agreement for student 2019A.
Second.
Moved by Perez, seconded by Deerdorf. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. I will entertain another motion.
I move we approve the consent expulsion agreement for student 2019B.
Second.
Moved by Perez, seconded by Rosser. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Perez, seconded by Beerbaum. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Thank you.